Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our third listening session on the Draft Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. Glad to see you joining us tonight. Right now, I've got about 40 people logged in, and I know we'll have several more come on as we get started. So as we get things rolling, I just want to run through a couple logistical issues. First of all, lines are muted at this point. I will explain in a minute how we're going to unmute lines to listen to you. We are also recording this listening session like we have done the other two. Those are all recorded and posted on the climate website, Eagle's climate webpage, as well as the Eagle YouTube channel. So you can find them both there. That's all I have for logistical issues right now. I'm going to turn it over to James Clift, and maybe you can introduce our other panelists as well. So James, go ahead.
I would, if you will let me.
Oh, did it lock you out? Hold on 1 second.
Thank you very much.
There you go. All right.
Really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. This is, as Jim mentioned, our third listening session. And we have kind of with us tonight, Corey Connolly. He is the new Climate and Energy Advisor for Eagle. Regina Strong, our EJ Public Advocate. Kimber Franz is our assistant here. So again, we'll be taking notes. As you may have heard, we have extended our public comment period until March 14th. So you can present kind of orally tonight, but if you want to supplement those, feel free anytime up to March 14th. You can submit written comments, and we'll have that website kind of posted a little later on. And at this point, we're scheduled to deliver the final My Healthy Climate Plan to the governor by April 22nd. So again, we're looking forward to your comments tonight, and we can jump right in, Jim.
All right, thanks, James. Like James said, we are here to listen to you, so we're not really going to be talking today, but I'm going to explain how we're going to listen to you. So basically, if when you registered, you had the option to let us know if you wanted to make a comment or not. And if you chose yes, what we have is a list of everyone that said yes, they wanted to make a comment. And we're going to be putting your names into the chat box in groups of 10. So if you're on deck in the chat box, you go into your toolbar, look at the chat. If you see your name there, that means you're on deck. Oh, there you go. So Kimber just put them up there. If you see your name, go ahead and raise your hand, and that'll tell me that you're here. And then when I call your name, I will unmute you or allow you to unmute yourself. You'll see a little microphone icon, or it'll say unmute. And then you can come on and make your comment. We are going to limit comments to 3 minutes tonight. So when you start talking, I got my little timer here. I'll be keeping track of time. When you hit 1 minute left, I will break in and just say you have a minute left. And then I'll let you know when your time's up, 3 minutes. And when your time is up, please wrap it up, because we do have a lot of people that would like to make a comment tonight. We want to make sure we spend time and listen to everyone. I think also at some point tonight, I'll have Kimber Wood put in some more details about where you can access the draft climate plan. And if you'd like to make comments, written comments, you can use the email box we have on the screen, and we'll also put that in the chat. So I'm not seeing very many hands raised, but in the chat, I do have a list of the first 10 people on deck. So if your name is in the on deck list, if you raise your hand, and then I'm going to be calling on you. And make sure when I unmute your microphone that you repeat your name, because chances are I might mispronounce it. It just happens often. And also, if you're with any organization, if you'd state that as well, just so we know. All right, so if everyone's ready, we're here to listen to you. And I am going to start out by going through my list. So the first person I have, oops, my timer's already going off. Okay. So the first person I have on deck is Sanaya Gant Jordan. And I'm looking for Sanaya's name, but I do not see her hand raised. So like I said, I'm just gonna, oh, there she is. Okay. So I've unmuted your mic and you can go ahead.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. So concerns how soon our action steps that we have been requesting for the climate justice from the state to fall into place, the resources. It seems like the opportunities are, they're saying the opportunities are existing, but we have yet to see where they're coming from and to take advantage of them. So I'm just wondering, how soon will that process begin?
So, so we're not going to be taking any questions tonight. It's just for comments. But James, or if you want to like kind of, if there's any things you want to say at the end, I guess you can, or if you want to address anything now, you can. But go ahead. So you can continue on with your comments if you have more. Okay.
Well, I guess to me, it just seems like we've been doing a lot of this work to no avail. So I'm just really concerned because at this point, there's been so many people with, you know, these health issues, the housing crisis, the contamination in the homes. There's just so many to address. So I'm just really concerned about where the resources are coming from and how they're going to be allocated and who's really going to be able to take advantage of them. So we don't want the same process to happen. And by the way, I'm with Environmental Justice, Climate, C4, Climate and Environmental Justice Coalition. So my concern is just really who's gonna win from this opportunity? Who's gonna be able to really take advantage of it? Is it gonna be the same process, the same winners as before? We need a shift to happen. We need our Black and Brown people in underserving communities to be able to take advantage of this rollout as it happens. So thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comment. All right, we're going to the next person on my list is Kamau Clark. I'm not seeing a hand raised. So we'll go to next is Ryan Stewart. I do see Ryan. So Ryan, you can unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you for taking my comments. So my name is Ryan Stewart. I'm president of McLeod Waterfront Alliance. It's a issue advocacy nonprofit geared towards the environmentally sustainable redevelopment of Southeast Michigan, specifically downriver and the waterfront. After reviewing the plan, I see that there's a lot of attention drawn to electrification of vehicles, and transportation is a major emitter of global climate change, greenhouse gas emissions. I also happen to notice that there were a couple of other factors on there, including impact on underserved populations, right? Some strategies such as reducing waste disposal and recycling. So, you know, one of the issues our organization is focused on is specific redevelopments at our waterfront Superfund site at the old McLeod Steel, the DTE coal burning power plant, and the quarry that they own about 300 acres where they dispose of coal, fly ash. And then there's a residential landfill that actually happens to be surrounded by senior and assisted living facilities, right? So according to EPA, about landfills are probably, according to the EPA, 1/3 or one of the top 3 emitters of global climate change related air pollutants. And so I wanted to put in a public comment to say that the Riverview Land Preserve, which has been up for an expansion request with Wayne County government, is an area that I hope that that Eagle and the governor's office focus on as being a tactical site where it can check a lot of boxes with, you know, reduction of global climate change related air pollutants, you know, making sure that our vulnerable aging population in the community isn't negatively impacted by contaminants like PFAS and greenhouse gas emissions.
1 minute left.
Oh, thank you. And an opportunity to reduce solid waste disposal by presenting an alternative that could also potentially help to cultivate an environment where recycling is a higher priority item in the community. So just wanted to say that in terms of a tactical project, that'd be a really good site. And thank you for taking public comment tonight.
All right, thanks for your comment, Ryan. Okay, next up on my list is Alex Sagaty. Alex, you should be able to unmute yourself.
This is Alex Sagaty. My comment on this so-called plan is that, first of all, no one can promise a healthy climate from a state plan. And because of the global aspect of greenhouse gas emissions and the atmospheric concentrations of greenhouse gases. So promising a healthy climate out of this plan is disingenuous and not being straight with the public. If there was one word that I could use to describe this plan as far as infrastructure, environmental, and energy stewardship, it would be feckless. Nothing in this plan is a carbon or greenhouse gas emission reduction plan showing all elements of the plan to get to the plan's stated so-called goal. Things like the shutdown of the Palisades nuclear power plant, which is coming in May, is not even acknowledged as an issue. And this is an action that's going to increase greenhouse gas emissions in Michigan by up to 2.6 million tons per year, more if coal plants are used to replace the power prior to Consumers Energy's shutdown. From the standpoint of environmental justice, the whole idea of a 100% renewable energy plan isn't demonstrated as being at all reliable. There's no discussion of the weather effects and climate effects on the operability of such a scheme. And if you look at the states where for example, California, where the highest utilization of renewable energy resources has taken place, they also have the highest residential, commercial, and industrial electric rates in the entire nation in the continental 48 states.
You have 1 minute.
So the bottom line is that this plan has no engineering credibility. There is no scientific consensus that the 100% renewable approach is actually feasible or economic, and the entire thing should be rethought and be rewritten by engineers who can certify that the plan will actually result in reliable electricity, and will consider things like the Line 5 shutdown, which will also increase greenhouse gas emissions in the state of Michigan. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. All right, next up is Danny Dolly. I don't see Danny with his hand up, so we'll go to Ashley Solciak. I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing his name. I apologize. I do not see Ashley with a hand up. Moving on to Allison Sutter. Allison, no hands up. Okay. Just remind people that some of you may have come on a little bit later. In the chat, we're putting everyone who is on deck to talk. If your name is in the chat, please raise your hand because that tells me you're here and you'd like to make your comment. And we'll be putting people in there in blocks of 10. So after we're done with this group, we'll come up with the next group of 10. So the last person I said was Allison Sutter. I don't see her hand up. Let's go to Brandi Crawford Johnson, and I do see Brandi. So Brandi, you can go ahead.
Hello, good evening. My name is Brandi Crawford Johnson. I'm an environmental justice activist from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Climate change is an environmental justice issue. Disadvantaged communities in Michigan face the greatest risk from climate change. Myself and my neighbors developed severe respiratory disease while living in our sacrifice zone neighborhood, which includes a major non-compliant polluter called graphic packaging. Disadvantaged communities have higher rates of health conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, asthma, and COPD. Heat stress can exacerbate heart disease and diabetes, and warming temperatures result in more pollen and smog, which can worsen asthma and COPD. Graphic packaging is in the top 50 toxic water and air polluters in the world. Graphic packaging is still releasing PCBs and PFAS into the Kalamazoo River out of their outfall. They are set to increase greenhouse emissions by 500 to 700,000 tons per year, which will increase the health risks for all Michiganders and prevent Michigan from achieving its goals of carbon neutrality set forth in the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. Rule 228 allows Eagle to, on a case-by-case basis, require a lower emission rate than that specified in regulations if it is determined that the limits may not provide adequate protection of human health or the environment. This rule could have been used for permits for graphic packaging in all polluters in Michigan. The fact that disadvantaged communities are in some of the most polluted environments in Michigan is no coincidence. Communities of color like my neighborhood in Kalamazoo are often chosen as sites for landfills, chemical plants, bus terminals, and other dirty businesses because corporations know it's harder for these residents to object. On top of the horribly toxic air and water that families are exposed to, they face increased risk to heat illnesses and flooding due to climate change. U of M provided a map in 2019 of all environmental injustice hotspots in Michigan, which include disadvantaged communities. For example, my community hotspot in Kalamazoo has an environmental justice score of 91. This means humans that are in a disadvantaged community have a 91% chance of getting respiratory disease and cancer by living where most people have no choice. They cannot afford to relocate. No human should have corporate polluters have that much control of their health and quality of life. 14 years were taken off the lives of residents living in our disadvantaged community. People are not disposable. The death gaps and EJ scores are similar in all disadvantaged communities with legacy pollution throughout Michigan. Justice 40 will provide funding that Eagle can use to hire more enforcement officers and environmental justice officials throughout the state. Justice 40 can provide clean energy jobs to replace the jobs when toxic polluters are shut down to protect Michiganders. Eagle must revoke all permits in disadvantaged communities. Most all permits issued in these fence-line communities were given without a health impact assessment before these permits were approved. This is a horrible injustice to these communities and all Michiganders facing the biggest health and climate crisis this world has ever seen. Tackling environmental justice issues immediately in all Michigan's disadvantaged communities should be the most important goal of Eagle and of our governor. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Brandi, for your comment tonight. Going on next to Biddeban Reinhardt. You can go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Cool. All right, bonjour everyone, greetings. My name is Biddeban Reinhardt. I am the environmental justice organizer with We the People Michigan and an Anishinaabe citizen of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. So first off, I wanted to thank Eagle and all of those who put their time and thought into this Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. Many of the goals in this document are aspirational and ambitious, but it is clear with the one single page dedicated to natural environments and the complete omission of any reference to the tribes whose land we stand on, that there has been a fundamentally misguided start in creating a healthy future for all Michiganders. As an Anishinaabe woman, I was raised with our traditional values, such as the 7 generations philosophy, that says what we do today will have reverberating impacts for 7 generations into the future. This worldview centers respect, reciprocity with the world around us, and reminds us that people are part of the ecosystem as well. When every tribe, federally recognized tribe, passed a resolution to decommission Enbridge Line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac, we did so in order to protect our Great Lakes and waterways, fishing grounds, Minoman or wild rice beds, and all of those who live and work on the shores of the lakes. A catastrophic oil spill in the Straits of Mackinac would devastate the tribal fishing industry, shut down water intakes for numerous communities, and devastate the shoreline, island ecosystems, and the tourist industry. We've seen firsthand the immediate impacts that a pipeline spill causes to our ecosystem with the rupture of another Enbridge pipeline, Line 6B, in the Kalamazoo River. So I'm asking, why is this not addressed in this healthy climate plan? In prioritizing job creation and policy development over ecological, health, and environmental injustices, we have already set a path too narrow to accomplish the greater goal of a just, better future for all. There are numerous studies done of how and why we need to transition away from fossil fuels, but accountability to the injustices on Indigenous peoples and communities of color need to be directly addressed in order for substantial progress to be made. As we make a plan to create a healthy future for all Michiganders, we need to include Indigenous people, our voices, and our values in order to make a fundamental shift into how we can create a better world for future generations. Miigwech.
1 minute.
I will submit written comments as well, and I yield my time.
All right, thank you for your comment. All right, up next for commenting is Brian Campbell. Brian, I see you there. You can go ahead now.
Yes, hello. Thank you for letting me comment. My name is Brian Campbell. I'm an eco-modernist. And as far as this climate plan goes, I look at the example, I'm looking at right now at electricitymap.org, electricitymap.org. And that is what Google uses to pay RECs, renewable energy credits, so that they can claim that they are 100% carbon free, which they're not, of course. But anyways, electricitymap.org for the MISO, the Mid-Continental Independent Transmission System, is currently saying that its system, which is all part of Michigan, is 437 grams of carbon dioxide of emissions emitted per kilowatt hour. That compares to Ontario at 139 grams. But Ontario has 10 gigawatts of nuclear power in their can-do reactors. Yes, Ontario refurbished its can-do reactors between 2000 and 2020, at least a lot of them anyways. They were able to eliminate coal as an electrical generation. Usually they're even lower than 139 grams, but right now their wind is a little bit low. So their expensive wind that they spent billions and billions on is not performing right now. And it's cold up there in Ontario, but they don't have any worries because they've got nuclear power, which is 24/7 power, which is reliable generation.
1 minute.
Something that renewable energy isn't. And so I look at MISO right now, it's almost 49% coal. And you guys are gonna replace that coal with RE and hope that this is gonna decarbonize Michigan. It's nuts. Like Alex Sagway said, this plan is not written by engineers. All you're going to do is increase emissions, make power a lot more expensive, and bonus, you're gonna the environmental justice communities that you're supposedly this plan is gonna help is gonna drive their electrical bills up to the max.
Okay, that's 3 minutes.
What
Sir.
this is going to do. And as far as you're going to wipe out in May all your renewable energy equivalent by closing Palisades nuclear plant. It's
Okay,
insane.
Mr. Campbell, that's 3 minutes. Wrap it up, please.
It's insane.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. All right, let's, if you look in the chat, you'll see we're dropping in a list of about groups of 10 at a time. So you'll see our next group of people on deck is there. So if you see your name, remember to raise your hand. That lets me know that you're here tonight and we'll call on you. So Bridget Viall is next up. And Bridget, I see you. Oops, I think I just unmuted the wrong person. Nope, there you go. Okay. Go ahead, Bridget.
Well, hi, my name is Bridget Viall. I'm with the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I'm going to start by framing what environmental justice is. Environmental justice is an answer to a broken economic model in which corporations are allowed to extract land and resources, often seeking to privatize and monopolize public goods while undervaluing labor and externalizing the negative impacts to human health and the climate. And that is especially frontline, fence line communities, Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant, low wealth communities. This is who we are speaking about when we say environmental justice communities, and they're a sizable portion of our state, and especially people of color in this state. EGLE failed to meaningfully engage EJ communities in the creation of this My Healthy Climate Plan draft, not even bringing in the Michigan Advisory Council on Environmental Justice, a body of leadership in the state for this purpose, until the draft had been drafted and their name was on it. So I want to say environmental justice communities have been engaged this year in the climate fight on the east side of Detroit, fighting for the right to breathe next to an electric vehicle facility, which is in line with the goals of this draft plan, right? But that's poisoning their neighborhood. Folks in Flint fighting for the right to breathe next to an asphalt plant, folks in Benton Harbor working to make sure that everyone in the city knows that the water isn't safe to drink, which they should have known 3 years ago. So, if EGLE wanted to incorporate the wisdom of environmental justice communities throughout this process, you could have. People have been showing up. So I'm going to make, a couple of broad recommendations around how to improve the plan. The first is around setting clear goals that center the well-being of people. So right now, there's a goal in the plan that says we want to get 2 million electric vehicles on the road by, I think, like 2035, right? So we need a goal that says, by X date, 100% of Michiganders live in affordable, insulated, electrified housing, and everyone can afford our utility bills, and that we know the water coming out of our tap is safe to drink, that we can access community-owned renewable energy, that we can all breathe safe, clean air. Is that 1 more minute?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Regardless of our zip code, and that we know that if, severe weather causes a facility down the road to have an explosion, we know there's an emergency response plan for that. So we need a timeline and we need tactics for those goals. And another recommendation, it's going to take a lot to implement the goals in this plan, however it shows out. And EGLE should have oversight boards that have a majority of residents from EJ communities who are going to be most impacted. And so that should apply for objectives that are seen as being aligned with EJ, like Justice 40, so that we can make sure the implementation is really successful. It should also apply for objectives that are seen as neutral or even opposed to environmental justice, so we can raise the red flag. So those are broad recommendations. We're also submitting comments in writing, but for more detailed comments, really engaging with the substance, I want to shout out Great Lakes Environmental Law Center, Citizens Resistance Against Fermi 2, the Michigan Advisory Council on Environmental Justice, and the Bay Mills Indian community, who I know are submitting comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comment. All right, next on the list is John McGarry. I don't see John's hand up. So we'll move on to Dixie Wong. Don't see Dixie. Aaron Stanley. Okay, there's Aaron. So Aaron, you can go ahead.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Erin Stanley. I'm a climate equity manager at Eastside Community Network, where we have over 30 years of resident-driven community development experience on Detroit's East Side. Overall, I want to commend the Governor and EGLE for taking such an intentional and explicit approach to responding as a state to the challenges of climate change. However, I want to note a few comments in hopes that the final draft will focus more on solutions and preparedness that will benefit people on the ground in frontline communities. First, I think that more impacted people and community-led organizations should have a role in developing this plan, in evaluating its accountability to the equity priorities it outlines, and in deciding where federal infrastructure and COVID relief funds that are sent to the state should go, which I've heard previous commenters mention it all as well. Second, I want to note that this plan seems more focused on climate mitigation and emissions reduction rather than adaptation and community well-being. That said, I think it's essential for any plan that addresses climate change in our state to prioritize emergency preparedness and climate resilience at the local level. The safety and health of real people, such as the thousands of Detroiters still recovering from last summer's catastrophic flooding, the people living in the shadows of the Stellantis plant that was mentioned on the east side of Detroit in the previous comment, The needs and safety of these people, as well as all other Michiganders in these sacrifice zones, need to be just as important in this plan as the more abstract task of reducing carbon emissions. Carbon reductionist frameworks like this one still allow the biggest polluters to profit and disregard the people most impacted and least responsible. Lastly, I noticed a focus in the plan on the transportation industry, and just want to note that subsidizing electric vehicle purchases is not an equitable strategy, as it is not accessible and continues to place corporate profit over community well-being. Instead, this plan presents an opportunity to address underlying causes of transportation inequity and make investments in public transportation or electric car and bike sharing that would help reduce emissions as well as provide direct benefits to people. In closing, I want to stress the urgency of acting now. We are already seeing the impacts of climate change in our state very disproportionately, and the communities being impacted the most do not have time to wait for politics or infrastructure projects that take years. We need both short and long-term solutions, and we need them now. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erin, for your comment. Okay, next up is Gail Mansoutz. Gail, you should be able to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, excellent. I am Gail Mansoutz, and I am here involved with Michigan League of Conservation Voters. I would like to thank Governor Whitmer and Eagle for presenting this plan and actually engaging in presenting this plan. However, it does need some tweaks as far as the devil is in the details. And this plan was created with a lot of broad strokes, and it needs more detailing on how you're going to accomplish these goals, as well as how are you going to fund them. And I would like to make some comments on greenhouse gases, transportation, solar roof panel percentage, and carbon set off, as well as clean water. And of course, I want to make comment on more funding and personnel for Eagle to push forward this plan. First, in greenhouse gases, I think the goal should be for 2032 at the very latest. And as far as I would like to encourage adoption of 100% zero carbon energy standards by 2035. Transportation, I would like to encourage more public transportation than is electrified. And I am a visually impaired person. We need in this motor state more public transportation, both city, county, and statewide. That will help to reduce greenhouse gases. Next, solar roof panels. I want to ask that we increase the percentage from 1% on increments of 5, 10, and 20% over a certain amount of years to give that more us more options and also reduce. Yep, thank you. Reduce greenhouse gas. And carbon offset. I see you've mentioned how companies have these plans. We need to have regulations because some of them are distractions. They're not really reducing their carbon footprint at all. And it's a scheme to just fool the public and, you know, it's advertisement is all it is. And that's what I would ask to do. I thank you very much for your time and I yield the rest of my time.
All right, thank you for your comments tonight. Okay, next up, Marnish Jackson. I see you there and you can go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Marnish Jackson and I am with the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition. and a part of the NAACP Northern Oakland County Branch Environmental and Climate Justice Chair. So I want to say thank you to Governor Whitmer, Eagle, then also my fellow council members for leaning into this climate plan. However, there's still so much work to do. So one recommendation is that the council and working teams, especially the housing and energy work team, need to revisit that component of the plan because it's definitely a lacking energy efficiency. And as we talk about environmental justice and taking an equity first approach, we did not do that, okay? Equity was pretty much at the end of developing this plan. So with another recommendation, where I'm recommending alongside the coalition is to have more community-based listening sessions where we can prioritize Black, Brown, Indigenous, and low-income stakeholders and other vulnerable EJ communities informing this plan, and also using the EJ body to help implement the plan, because clearly it's lacking. It's very broad, as the last person just said, and we need to focus on the details. And then also with communities of color facing long systemic inequality, energy burden, as we can see right now with our consumers and DTE bills, we need to definitely focus on the housing costs, because in Michigan, there's a number, about 15% of Black and Latinx household who are suffering from this energy problem. And so I am asking that one, and recommending that this be a community driven process. And if you have to scratch the whole thing and start over, oh well. Utilize the current EJ for the implementation plan and solving this problem. And then also prioritizing community resiliency and disaster preparedness because communities are not prepared. And so the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition will be submitting comments as well. And I yield my time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. All right, next is Richard Kobe. Richard Kobe. Do not see Richard. Michelle Preston. I see Michelle. Michelle, you can go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Preston. I'm from Downriver, Michigan. I grew up in a fairly polluted community there. I'm an environmental scientist and I work in public health. I'm very passionate about environmental justice in Wayne County, and I have felt the devastating impacts of air pollution firsthand. My father died prematurely after living near a coal-fired power plant for nearly 30 years. He was 56. That's a lot of time lost, and I'm not the only person going through that. This is largely due, in my opinion, to air pollution in my community from a coal plant, but also from some other major emitters. And my main point here is I'm really concerned about the clean industrial hubs portion of this plan, because I don't believe that a clean industrial activity has been discovered yet. And even if it has, as a scientist, I know that there are always unpredictable things that we don't realize are harmful until later. I don't think that this phrase is specific enough. This phrase is directly from the plan. Importantly, the work group noted the potential environmental justice issues associated with co-locating multiple facilities and deciding where to site these hubs, and the need to pay special attention to working with potentially impacted communities. In my opinion, there is no reason for industrial development to continue in residential communities. I also agree with Marnish Jackson and Bridget Viall that people are engaged and impacted communities need to be involved in this process. Our knowledge is extremely valuable. I speak for my community downriver. There are a lot of people engaged right now in trying to deal with the air pollution that we're currently facing, and also how are we going to stop the industrial development that is trying to continue? It's trying to expand in our residential communities. So I think that the clean industrial hubs bit needs more attention, and that impacted communities need to have a lot of opportunities to help develop how this looks, so that residential communities are not burdened with heavy air pollution that takes decades off of people's lives. Thank you for listening, and I do appreciate the effort on Eagle's part to address environmental injustices in Michigan. And I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, for your comment. Okay, up next is Noraya Sharif. Noraya Sharif, I do not see hand up. Paul Kerman. I do not see Paul's name. Just to remind you, we are putting names of people that are on deck in the chat. So you will, if you see your name there, just go ahead and raise your hand and we will call on you. All right, so it looks like Kimber put in another list of names in terms of people that want to request to talk. So if you see your name now listed in there, you may want to go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. So the next person up is Pamela Carello. Pamela Carello, I don't see your hand up. So go to Rachel Hansen Harvey. Rachel, I see you there and you can go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Rachel Hansen Harvey. I'm a resident of Lathrop Village, Michigan. I'm commenting tonight as an environmental advocate and a concerned citizen, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide comment on the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. I also want to thank Governor Whitmer for taking action in the right direction to address the critical issue of climate change. While I think the Healthy Climate Plan is a step in the right direction, it must be strengthened if we can hope for it to have any real impact on climate change and the issues of environmental justice. First, I think the plan needs to set a concrete timeline and clear steps for implementation. This will require increasing the capacity and funding to EGLE, as this will be the organization responsible for implementing the plan. They will need adequate resources to do so. A plan is only as good as the people and the resources it has to enforce it. As to the plan itself, the plan must emphasize and meet the need and urgency of the climate crisis. We must implement a plan that urgently transitions away from fossil fuels, but with a clear plan set in place that considers and protects low-income communities and communities of color. We must implement a plan that protects all Michiganders. The plan should set clear deadlines that requires the complete phase out of coal by 2032 at the latest and encourages an accessible 100% zero carbon energy standard by 2035. I think the Healthy Climate Plan must recognize concepts of environmental justice to address the fair and equitable distribution of environmental benefits and burdens associated with economic production. The climate plan must adopt the Justice 40 principles to address the long-standing inequalities in the energy, transportation, and housing sectors, just to name a few. It is critical that the communities that have suffered the most receive real attention in this plan to provide the infrastructure necessary to create more resilient communities going forward. Thank you for your time today, and I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. All right. Going on to Renee Wallace. Renee, I see you, and you can go ahead.
Hi and good day, everyone. My name is Renee V Wallace, and I'm located here in Detroit, Michigan. And today I speak as an active participant in community work around climate and food systems and other related work. I first would acknowledge that the plan that was written in the section that deals with natural lands and foods does make a reference to the management of climate in terms of farm practices and things of that nature. And that's definitely something we should pay attention to. However, it doesn't necessarily have much depth there around addressing other areas in the food system and the impact that it has on our climate. Food waste, which typically is going to our landfills, is producing a high level of the methane that is causing negative effects to our climate. And we don't really address that in the climate plan extensively. We do talk about diverting food from the landfill for composting, but all along our food system, there's materials falling out of the system, and we can take actions to do more prevention as well as diversion for recovery for people to eat food, you know, as well as advancing the work along diversion from the landfills. And that particular work for diversion from landfills to composting requires us to also take action on Part 115 legislation that is proposed that will help to make landmark changes to the way that we actually facilitate composting in the state of Michigan. So these two issues are very closely related to one another. A group that I'm a part of put forth a comprehensive set of recommendations around food loss, waste, and reduction. And we'd like to have those considered as this plan is being finalized, and we will resubmit those again in writing for review of the Climate Council. And thank you very much for this opportunity to speak this evening.
Okay, thanks Renee for your comment. All right, so next up we've got Scott Marasek or Marasek. Don't see Scott's hand up, so we'll go to Reverb Bennett. River, I see you. You can
Hello.
Go ahead. Hello. Go ahead.
Great. So thank you. My name is Reverb Bennett. I'm in Ann Arbor. I'm a student at the University of Michigan Department for Nuclear Engineering and Radiological Sciences. So I am speaking on behalf of students and faculty there. And we'll be submitting some written comments as well with a lot of citations for what I'm going to be saying today, but I'll keep my comments short. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes Energy, and the authors of the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. As students and faculty at the University of Michigan's Nuclear Engineering and Radiological Sciences, also known as NERS, and also the #1 nuclear engineering program in the United States, we congratulate you on your work to draft a comprehensive state-level climate plan for Michigan that addresses the needs of today's citizens while crafting a vision for our state's future. The concurrent public health, racial, and economic pandemics that our country is currently facing require us to band together to craft distinct and holistic solutions within the context of our communities and our states. While we're excited by the progress represented by the draft climate plan, we are disappointed to find no mention of nuclear power. Nuclear power currently generates about 20% of US electricity and about half of the country's low carbon electricity. In Michigan, these numbers are about 30% and 80% respectively. Nuclear is one of the safest forms of energy production alongside wind, hydropower, and solar, and operates around the clock and in nearly all weather conditions. This is highly valuable to communities and states in northern climates that already experience severe weather, with more on the way this century. In the face of competition with cheap natural gas, existing nuclear power plants' high-paying jobs and enormous contributions to limiting carbon emissions have been recognized by multiple states and the federal government through efforts made to properly recognize nuclear for the value of its clean energy. In only the past 5 years, an array of updated stances from experts across multiple disciplines have echoed these facts. Both nationally and internationally, news outlets and cultural commentators are also beginning to amplify a change in public opinion. Crafting robust climate policy requires input from all impacted communities, as well as a focused eye towards equity. While the infrastructure and manufacturing build-out of the United States during the 20th century is one of the greatest cultural, scientific, and engineering accomplishments in modern history, not everyone is brought along. In fact, we are focused on better understanding and addressing the legacy impacts of our technology and its impact on disadvantaged communities. For scientists and engineers motivated to bring technologies that serve humanity, there's no excuse for allowing these harms to take place. So as members of a new generation of nuclear engineers and scientists, we are inspired by the opportunity to modernize the sector to meet the challenges of this century. We're designing new technologies that are better suited to today's energy markets while incorporating lessons we have learned from past faults. We're engaging with existing energy communities to find new applications for nuclear power while building bridges to new communities to rethink where nuclear plants can be built. We're taking the nuclear waste issue seriously by pursuing initiatives that have worked in other countries. And most importantly, we're growing. Today, the United States is graduating more nuclear engineering students than it has in over 40 years. We understand that nuclear power is a contentious issue, but as young people and academics who have committed our lives to this field, we hope that there is room in Michigan's conversation around climate to rethink the role of nuclear power in the state. Thank you, and I'll yield the rest of my time.
All right, thanks for your comment tonight. All right, let's go to next up is Robert Pulski. Robert, I see you there. You can go ahead and make your comments now. Robert, if you're there, you can make your comments. Just unmute your mic. All right, maybe we'll come back to Robert in just a little bit here. So Robert, if you're having trouble with your microphone, don't worry about it. We'll come back to you in just a little bit here. So moving on to Theresa Landrum. Theresa, I see you there and I can unmute you. You can go and unmute yourself.
Good evening, and thanks to Eagle for this opportunity to share my comments. I am Theresa Landrum, and I am representing the community of Southwest Detroit 48217, a frontline and environmentally impacted community, an area that is surrounded by more than 42 major and minor polluting industries, an area that has been in non-attainment, had been for more than 12 years, and is still in non-attainment for ozone. My community, a predominantly Black community, knows and experiences the impact of carbon emissions and climate change firsthand, with the prevalence of extreme health issues such as high rates of cancer, asthma, and other chronic diseases among our residents. In addition, we suffer with constant power outages and severe flooding of our neighborhoods, and we also deal with urban decay that comes with climate change. In reviewing the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan, I see sections that focus on commitments to transportation, jobs, business, electricity, and more. What I don't see in the plan, and it fails to address in a hard commitment to address environmental justice and the people's health of environmentally impacted communities. That was so well expressed by, forgive my mispronunciation if I do, by Dr. Larry Junk, Elizabeth Del Bauno, and Jessica Schick in previous comments. It mentions environmental justice, but what the plan is missing and is needed is that environmental justice should have its own separate section detailed out that focuses on the health of the residents, the actual stakeholders, and how economic investments are needed to help rebuild environmentally impacted communities. The plan must include health in all policies. The plan must prioritize people, and we must prioritize the impacts they have suffered. It is labeled the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. Then my question is, how can you have a Michigan Healthy Climate Plan without healthy people?
1 minute.
If the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan is Michigan's effort to help arrest climate change, and our responsibility is to protect Mother Earth, our home, and to help restore an ecological system, then we must start by investing in people. At this time, I ask Eagle to include an EJ and health section in the plan that is fully flushed out for communities and commitments to the residents on health and environmental justice from a holistic lens that is intimately connected to any Michigan Healthy Plan. I yield. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Theresa. Okay, Kathy Weinman. Kathy, I don't see hand raised. I can go back to Robert Pulski. Robert, check in with you. Are you able to get your mic unmuted? You should see a microphone. You can either it'll pop up and say, there you go.
Right here.
All right.
Sorry about that. I'm at work right now trying to multitask. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, actually, good evening, everyone. Robert Pulski here, calling in from Southgate, Wayne County, just south of Detroit. It's a little suburb outside of Detroit, in debate with climate change around our area. I'm here tonight speaking on, as at the last meeting last week that was on Tuesday, I did speak about public transit. Now, getting into the real topic of the e-bike and electric scooter market. The topic of this is why don't we push this full-fledged out? We've already pushed it in downtown Detroit. We've already pushed it in Ann Arbor. There's plenty of perfect, things about the electric scooter market. It saves us energy, and it also is clean. It is clean, reliable transportation to and from work, not just public transit, but these things, I know they have a big price, jump to them, but at the same time, making it affordable, and this could be added to the plan, making it affordable for residents that cannot drive, having access to options like this, giving them plans, making the environment better by putting this out there. I own one myself, and I see the real big benefits of owning one of these things, and it can get you from point A to point B, 45 miles per charge. It gives you 20, it's perfect, clean, reliable transportation. And a lot of people in low income neighborhoods don't have access to this transportation. And that is the saddest part here. And providing them, and I don't think they get, they're not too involved with the climate crisis, but, giving them options and getting them more involved. And this is the start right here, giving them options and maybe starting up a bill where we can give people in low income neighborhoods, giving them reliable, clean transportation, starting with e-bikes, starting with electric scooters. That will definitely start us in the right direction of getting our economy and also getting climate change on the run. I mentioned public transit at the last meeting, and that is also a biggest thing here, especially in the city of Detroit, especially in the southeastern region of Detroit.
Give 1 minute.
Getting us back on track, getting us clean, reliable energy, efficiency, all types of transportation from e-bikes to electric scooters to regional transit, that will get us there. And it will also definitely get us to a place where we need to be. Because if we keep on holding up with this, there's less time. We're trying to save the environment. There are a lot of companies that are trying to save us. Make us have clean, reliable, efficient transportation. Either it's e-bikes, e-scooters, or regional transportation. Make it affordable for low-income neighborhoods. And then we can definitely get climate change on the run. I do apologize for all the background noise, but I'm a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to seeing this plan being rolled out, especially for regional transit and, electric cars and electric e-bikes and everything. Keep up the good work, Eagle, and I look forward to seeing this plan rolled out with the governor. Thank you, and have a great rest of your night.
Okay, thanks for your comment, Robert. Okay, Emma Walkers. Emma, I see you there. You can go ahead.
All right, awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So my name is Emma Wokers. I am a senior at Northern Michigan University studying environmental studies and sustainability, as well as a volunteer for the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. I wanted to first thank Eagle and Governor Whitmer for creating a good outline to make Michigan a leader in climate policy and action, and for hearing our comments tonight. I think that the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan is a great start. However, I think it could be improved upon in a couple of different areas. First, I want to urge Eagle to create a solid timeline and outline a budget for implementation. While the plan sounds good in theory, unless the state has the money, resources, and time to implement the plan properly, we will not see real change. Second, the plan must have a focus on environmental justice and use Justice 40 principles for allocating resources. We need to make sure that those who are being impacted the hardest by pollution, climate change, etc., are the ones the state will prioritize and who receive the most help. Finally, I am concerned with how the state plans to reach true carbon neutrality by 2050 when there are 2 proposed rocket launch sites right next to our Great Lakes. The proposed vertical site is located only 25 minutes away from where I live in Marquette, close to one of the most popular outdoor recreation corridors of the entire UP, and right on the shore of Lake Superior. As I am sure most of you on the panel are aware, rockets have an extremely large carbon footprint, along with being known to cause other negative environmental consequences. And I don't think that allowing rocket launch sites in our state will help us reach our goal of true carbon neutrality. There is a large focus on electric cars in the current draft, which I agree is important. However, this will all be in vain if we plan on starting a rocket launch program in the state. I hope that as a part of this plan, you will take a strong stance against launching rockets in Michigan to ensure that we reach our ultimate goal of 100% carbon neutrality by 2050. Thank you again for allowing me to speak today, and I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thanks for your comment. All right, we'll go to Dan next. Oops, sorry, wrong. I just unmuted the wrong person. Hold on a second. Dan, you should be able to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hey, my name is Dan, and I'm calling in from Detroit. I represent no one but myself. Thank you so much for taking my comment and everyone's comments on the MI Healthy Climate Plan. Now, focusing on the healthy part of the Healthy Climate Plan, I'm asking Eagle to adopt two things that were left out of the draft. First, MDOT needs to develop an emissions budget for greenhouse gas so we can track and limit those emissions on our roads. Second, we need to fund projects that reduce motor vehicle usage and encourage walking and cycling. Many people, especially many young people and people of color like me, cannot afford a car, never mind an electric car. It's hard to stay healthy in Michigan if you can't drive a car. If you need to get to a doctor or a grocery with fresh vegetables, you have to either walk across dangerously busy roads, dodge traffic on a bike, or just pray that the next bus arrives on time. Especially considering our elders who can't drive at all, not having a car can seriously limit access to a better quality of life. It shouldn't be that way. Even if everyone gets an electric car, that won't reduce the high number of traffic fatalities here in Michigan. And as we've seen at the Jeep Stellantis plant on the east side of Detroit, car manufacturing will continue to pollute the communities who live next to it. A plan that doesn't seriously improve car-free transportation within this decade is not a healthy climate plan. So we need to limit how much pollution comes from our motor vehicles. We need to reduce the amount of cars in our streets, and we need to make it easier to walk, cycle, and ride public transit so all of us can get healthy. Thank you to everyone who spoke today, especially to my fellow people of color. And thank you to Eagle for taking action on a healthier, more equitable, and less car-dependent Michigan. Thank you for listening to me, and I yield my time.
Okay, thank you, Dan. All right, so now I'm looking to see, Kimber, do we have anybody else that had said they wanted to make a comment ahead of time?
No, that's the whole list of those who requested that in advance.
All right, thanks. So right now we're going to go, and if anybody else would like to make a comment tonight that hasn't commented already, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. So if you haven't made a comment already and you'd want to make a comment, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we'll call on you. And again, just a reminder, please keep your comments to 3 minutes max, and I'll let you know when your time's at 1 minute and your 3 minutes is up. And also, yeah, if you have longer comments or like to make comments in written form, you can send them to the email address that's on your screen right now. That's just another way to get comments to us. Remember to repeat your name and any organization you're with. So I'm going to go ahead and right now I'm going to open it up to some people who got their hands up here. Lauren Rieg. Lauren, you can go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lauren Rieg. I work for RMI's Building Electrification team focused on building decarb policy in the Midwest. We are an independent, nonpartisan nonprofit organization whose mission is to transform the global energy system to secure a clean, prosperous, zero carbon future for all. We are also a part of the Michigan Building Decarbonization Coalition, which is a group of national and local building decarbonization advocates focused on policy opportunities in Michigan. Thank you for letting us provide comments today, and I'd like to focus on three main things. First, I'd like to ask for the council to provide organizations more time for verbal and written comments on this plan, as well as making sure the dates for these opportunities are clear and well communicated on the website or via email. With such a short turnaround time, it's difficult for organizations that need to organize and consolidate their resources quickly to provide comments on this draft. Next, I'd like to focus on comments directly related to the plan draft. We applaud the council's efforts to take a comprehensive approach to decarbonization in Michigan. However, the current draft underemphasizes the importance of buildings as a key sector for climate mitigation and represents building electrification as an area of innovation as opposed to a critical climate solution. We must address these to ensure all Michiganders have affordable climate-aligned homes. We first recommend that Michigan's Healthy Climate Plan strengthens its current building sector commitments by emphasizing building decarb and building electrification as a core strategy. Michigan will not be able to reach its climate goals equitably and affordably without these. We suggest 3 ways to strengthen this. First, prioritize buildings equally alongside the transportation and electricity sectors as key emission mitigation targets, while emphasizing beneficial building electrification as core to this strategy. 2, strengthen code recommendations by directing the construction codes to adopt all electric solar PV ready codes. And 3, commit to investing in upgrading existing homes by directing state and local agencies to collaborate on stacking funds to create a one-stop shop program. In addition, this plan needs to expand its current building commitments to ensure that it is addressing indirect, direct, and embodied carbon through regulatory gas planning proceedings, appliance standards, and buy clean policies. Thank you again for your time to speak today. We will also be submitting verbal comments, and I yield my time now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Jim Sherman. Jim, there you go. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Jim's on his way.
Thanks.
Okay.
I apologize for my late arrival. The garbage just had to be taken out right now. My name is Jim Sherman, and I'm the co-chair of the Citizens Resistance at Fermi 2. I want to give my sincere thanks to Governor Whitmer and Eagle for this amazing draft. It's a wonderful start. We've been working on issues around energy and climate justice. Excuse me, I ran back from the garbage. For 30 years. We first got involved after the critical accident at the Fermi 2 nuclear operating power plant on Christmas Day of '93. And we've been involved with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and Detroit Edison. And over these last 30 years, I have to say, wow, one of the areas this plan is greatly lacking is calling out our utilities for their misdeeds over the years. Before I get into that, I also want to thank the many commenters who've brought up so many wonderful issues about transportation, about solutions for people who can't afford an electric car or a big fancy LEED designed house. There's so much that we can do in this state to improve the lives of people who've been negatively impacted by generations of bad policy on energy. And I want to respond more specifically to some of the commenters who have raised the idea that nuclear can be a part of this plan. And I must say, for many reasons, which we will detail in our written submissions to Eagle, is just absolutely not the case. It is not a zero carbon energy source. Those plants didn't spring out of the ground. The uranium that is fueling them didn't pop out of the sky. It is a very energy and carbon intensive process, and it is not cyclical. The plan calls for Michigan solutions for Michiganders and to develop a more cyclical energy economy. And nuclear is a stream from mining to transportation to processing to actually the fission process.
One more minute.
And then the thousands of years that this energy will, that this fuel, this highly toxic radioactive waste will need to be stored. We have around 80,000 metric tons of spent nuclear waste in the United States alone. And we're going on 70 years of the federal promise to make a place for that stuff to go. And we just do not have it. A lot of people will say that nuclear is the pro-science way to go, but there's nothing pro-science about nuclear. When you predetermine your outcome, you're no longer doing science. And the outcomes for nuclear have been predetermined from the beginnings of the Atoms for Peace plan, which was a false cover for nuclear proliferation. So I will give the rest of my comments in writing. I want to thank everyone who's taken part in this process and just encourage the increased view from environmental justice communities that are most impacted by these decisions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for your comments tonight. Okay, Monica Lewis Patrick.
Yes. Can you hear me, Jim?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you for getting me in the queue. This is Monica Lewis Patrick, and just wanted to talk quickly about the concerns that I have with the plan. I am not only the president of We the People of Detroit and reside here in the city of Detroit, not only owning a business in the city, but living here. I'm deeply concerned about the plan from that perspective, but also concerned about the plan as a member of the MAC-EJ. And also a member of the greater community of environmental justice advocates across Michigan that have expressed concerns about the plan not being substantive enough and not being inclusive enough. And so I wanted to offer a couple of things. One, thanking Eagle for extending the time. It was so important to get these comments in and to allow more comments to come, but also seeing that there is a great need for Eagle to make sure that as you're moving forward with this plan, that you're moving forward with something that is inclusive and that is representative of the very communities that you are supposed to represent. Climate-related flooding and wastewater exposures are drastically increasing and threatening both drinking water and wastewater systems. And to talk about water in this plan and to call it a Michigan Healthy Plan without including issues of flooding remediation, without talking about ways to address this, since we know that we reside here, right here in Detroit, where we were sitting in at least 5 occurrences of flooding, to not look at this as a way to be able to invest and increase water infrastructure investments and connecting those to opportunities that align with major economic opportunities and with the demographics of those that have been most impacted by economic and environmental racism and divestment. I think it also must be an opportunity, if you're going to talk about Justice 40, it must have some substantive recommendations. It needs to ensure that vulnerable communities and low-income communities and communities of color that are threatened by climate-influenced water, that they're engaged in the water planning, governance, and implementation of resilience measures. You need to look at the Cleveland, Ohio plan. They gave an excellent example in looking at climate action planning. You need to also look at the fact that we need to address historic economic disparities and dislocation by increasing educational, job, and business opportunities for low-income people and communities of color in designing, building, operating, and maintaining the next generation of blue and green sustainable water infrastructure and operators. To not include a workforce development strategy and then to do a drive-by mentioning of Justice 40 does a disservice to what the opportunity of Justice 40 could really do. I would like to offer that you look at some of the plans that have been implemented along the lines of what has been done with Emerald City, with San Francisco's Public Utilities Commission, with looking at the EPA Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfield Environmental Workforce Development and Job Training, the Environmental Health Science and Environmental Career Workforce Training Program. We must make this plan have life. As others have said, it needs to have a budget and it needs to have metrics so that we can ensure that this plan is moving forward in a way that is improving the quality of life of Michiganders. Thank you so much for my time.
All right, thank you for your comments tonight. Andrew Collins. Andrew, you can go ahead and make your comment.
Hello, my name is, excuse me, my name is Andrew Collins and I live here in Kentwood and work in Grand Rapids. Thank you to Eagle for taking public comments on this draft climate plan and to Governor Whitmer for taking action on climate. This plan is more aspirational and more like a vision document than an implementation plan. The plan needs to have objective steps with concrete timelines for implementation. But above all else, insufficiently ambitious, broad, or inclusive plan will be a disaster. It's got to be a big one. So regarding implementation, the plan must ensure Eagle has sufficient capacity, including staffing levels and budget. There's going to be a lot of work with a lot of departments. Eagle has had some problems up till now in connecting with all of the others. There's reference inside the plan to various interdepartmental work group reports. Those probably should be brought out of the appendix and more into the whole of government approach that this plan should attempt. Regarding environmental justice, the plan must focus. It does make reference to Justice 40 principles. However, it doesn't give any actual connection of those principles to specifics for Michigan. Regarding energy production, the plan does have discussion of, but it needs to state it clearly to phase out all coal by 2032 and adopt a zero carbon energy standard by 2035. The rolling it out to the 2050s is basically kicking the can down for yet another generation to be disappointed with their forebear. Regarding transportation, the plan does include a brief discussion about build out of charging infrastructure and makes mention of supporting adoption through incentives. These need to be made broad for all Michiganders. The general idea or the vision of having this vast charging infrastructure, we need to see some particulars, maybe some maps even. Also, the plan makes mention of fleet transition, but it doesn't go into any particulars at the state level. It kind of seems to breeze into the idea that this will happen. Well, let's get specific. We got a lot of buses out there. We got a lot of government-owned, state government-owned operations that can be decarbonized. Make that a part of the plan in more specific detail. But again, the final part is above all else, an insufficiently ambitious or broad or inclusive plan will end up being a disaster for all participants and for all of Michigan. So go big. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is Bridget Corwin. Bridget, you can go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Bridget Corwin and I'm from Beverly Hills, Michigan. I wanted to start off by thanking Eagle for agreeing to take public comment and also Governor Whitmer for taking this action on climate change in our state. One of the main points I really wanted to share is that I really am excited that the state is taking action and starting to develop an ambitious plan for statewide decarbonization, infrastructure revitalization, environmental justice, and transitioning to renewable energy sources. But I am concerned about the lack of timelines for some goals. And if goals do have dates associated with them, there are very few details about how exactly those goals will be accomplished. And in the final draft, it would be extremely helpful to have concrete, comprehensive timelines, points of contact, funding sources, and systems for ensuring continued progress towards goals and ensuring accountability for residents and everyone working to achieve these goals in government and other organizations. I also wanted to mention that I wish that the plan had focused more on the unique role of Michigan's Indigenous communities in climate change mitigation and environmental stewardship in the state, as well as their high exposure to environmental hazards. I think the plan would be really strengthened by establishing partnerships with the many tribes, communities, and organizations that have already been doing so much of this environmental and climate work at the local level. And it could be extremely instrumental in ensuring the goals of this plan are met and actually have comprehensive steps associated with them. And with that, I yield my time. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for your comments, Bridget. So we're getting pretty close to wrapping up. We've got about 4 more people with their hands up, just to let you know. All right, so Rhonda Sanders Adams, you can go ahead.
Okay, hello, everyone. I think Governor Whitman referred to the initiative to set forth a plan that is very, very progressive. But we do have other things we need to consider, especially with at-risk communities. I represent the Red, Black, and Green New Deal, as well as the East Side Community Network Climate and Change, and here in Detroit, Michigan. And I wanted to ask a question. Is it possible to have the credit score factor eliminated for solar efficiency homes in at-risk disadvantaged communities and householders through the DTE, creating a waiver of this barrier? Prior to having DTE and consumer energy powers, reverting to battery exchange for new renewable energies, taking control of our funding that is provided to these energy sources and allowing them to invest in these communities at a large scale. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your comment tonight. Ian Tran. Ian, you're up next.
Good evening. Thank you again for receiving my comments. I had commented at a previous session. Tonight, there are 3 items that I want to prioritize. One is also in league with the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition, the overall request to extend not just the time for comment, but also the orientation of Eagle's engagement with afflicted communities and their organizations. In particular, I would like to recommend that Eagle takes a more co-creative stance in really centering and leading some of these marginalized communities, such as, as we've heard on the call, whether they're Indigenous or Detroit, Flint, even Kalamazoo, anywhere that there's already an existing known area of concern or other priorities that are already in the spectrum of environmental justice priorities. How can we use that and let them lead the conversation at looking at their existing challenges while also putting it in alignment with what it means for addressing the carbon and other greenhouse gas emission targets? Of course, as others have echoed, the plan is a framework more than it is a plan at this time. And so I would strongly recommend, again, to speciate specific targets, as others have said, and develop metrics, and ideally, again, do it in a co-creative participatory way with many of these stakeholders, most of whom, if you look at the translation needs that were not necessarily activated during this call, whether they're in the disability community or Arab or Hispanic or of other languages, those communities often lag in being able to find out about this information, and just the work that it takes to educate and bring people on the same page is also something that does require some special attention. And so I'd like to encourage Eagle to really reapproach it and look at ways to partner with our communities so that we can facilitate more cohesive comment sessions that also don't limit people to the 3-minute time frame, especially for non-professional advocates. Another item that I'd like to raise is just speciating intermittent load, because reliability is not necessarily the same, should not necessarily be held to the same standard depending on the community. Some communities can flex a little bit more about their power demands if it's agriculture or transportation or residential sectors versus manufacturing. They have differences. So that's currently not reflected. And also in the embodied energy, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions tracking, I don't see that being specified. And I would recommend also to keep in mind again that methane and also freon derivatives are low-hanging fruit for taking up to like 25% of the greenhouse gas.
It's 3 minutes.
Too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments tonight, Ian. Okay, next up is Kelly Eubank. Kelly, you can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kelly Eubank. I live in Detroit on the east side. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak today and everyone else. I just feel like this plan is not holistic enough. And like the only time I read the word holistic in this plan was when it was talking about the dynamic between using fossil fuel and electric energy, which kind of like defeats the purpose of holistic to me, which is like, what do our communities look like and how do we actually create a healthy Michigan and prepare us for the new climate era that we've just entered. We need to have bold, creative, and equitable strategies as we move forward, and we need to look at creating intentional communities that incorporate Indigenous wisdom and knowledge of healthy ecosystems with biomimicry. This plan needs to incorporate the knowledge and heart of Black and Brown communities, organizations, and leaders, and the plan needs to realize that the current societal structure is unhealthy and will not be fixed with electric cars and electrifying the problematic hyper-consumerism and profit-first motives. Our main goal with this plan should be creating equitable, healthy, thriving communities, not to ensure that DTE and the big three continue to rake in profits. I really appreciated the comments that Renee Wallace said about composting and Monica Lewis Patrick about water, because it makes me think about the holistic measures that we can take to address the climate crisis and our relationship with the environment around us. Thinking about walkable communities, clean water, soil that is rich in nutrients and low in contaminants, public sources of rest and healing that involve like tree coverage, and understanding the dynamic that this beautiful ecosystem around us can offer to help mitigate the current climate crisis that we are in. We need to be focusing on like what we're teaching in schools in order to like prepare us moving forward for this new climate era that we've entered.
1 minute.
We need to focus on the collective health of this planet and cohabitating with the amazing insects and animals and plants that live with us here on this planet, not the new, like, I don't know, like there are lots of ways that we can incorporate the knowledge of what the earth is offering us that should be talked about in this plan so that we can actually continue to thrive and not to be dependent on fossil fuel companies who are just trying to make a buck right now and electric cars. Like we need walkable neighborhoods. We need public transportation that's accessible and affordable to all people, and like thinking about designing our communities around that rather than around the car, and thinking about designing our society around health and thriving rather than hyper consumerism. Thank you.
3 minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, up next, Abigail Barker. Go ahead, Abigail.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking Eagle for taking public comment and to thank the governor for taking action on climate. I am a resident of Grand Rapids, and I am concerned about the impact climate change has had on our environment and public health, especially in communities of color and low-income communities, which are disproportionately impacted by these issues. In my lifetime, I've had to worry if the water I'm drinking or swimming in is contaminated, if the air I'm breathing is poisoning me, how I can protect myself from extreme weather events, and what my future children's lives will look like. And this is unacceptable. We must take bold action now to protect Michiganders, those who call Michigan home now, and for future generations as well. The draft plan is a good start, but it has to be strengthened. The plan needs to include a concrete timeline and plan for implementation. This includes increasing capacity within Eagle to ensure that the plan can be properly implemented once it is adopted. The plan must focus on environmental justice, and the allocation of resources have to be guided by Justice 40 principles that need to be clearly outlined in the plan. It is critical that the communities that have been impacted the most receive the resources that they need. It is past time that we address environmental racism and work towards real change. The plan should meet the urgency of the climate crisis by rapidly increasing our use of clean, renewable energy and prioritizing an equitable transition off of fossil fuels to reduce pollution and protect our health. We need concrete steps to create safer communities, improve the health of all of us here in Michigan, including phasing out all coal by 2032 at the latest, encouraging the adoption of 100% zero carbon energy standard by 2035, and setting a 3% energy efficiency target for electric utilities. We all deserve access to a clean and safe environment, and we need to put people over profit. Thank you again for taking time to receive and consider comments.
Okay, thank you, Abigail. All right, and the last person up tonight is John McGarry. So John, you can go ahead.
Okay, I made some comments last week, but I wanted to supplement them a little bit. Background, I'm a resident of Ada, Michigan. I'm a retired environmental property lawyer. I'm active in Citizens Climate Lobby and Michigan League of Conservation Voters. I'm on the board of Michigan League of Conservation Voters. I'm also an active member of the Environmental Justice Committee of the Grand Rapids NACP. But I wanted to cover two subjects here. One is carbon pricing and the other is land. With respect to carbon pricing, I don't think I heard anybody talk about it. I didn't see it in there, but what I wanted to say is that I think that's something that could be considered. Pope Francis gave a speech before Congress in June 2019 after reading the 2018 United Nations governmental policy on climate change. He articulated his views on 3 points of the meeting. And what his second point was carbon pricing. And I want to read you this short comment because I can't articulate it as well as he did. Carbon pricing is essential if humanity is to use the resources of creation wisely. The failure to deal with carbon emissions has encouraged a vast debt that would now have to be repaid with interest by those coming after us. Our use of the world's natural resources can only be considered ethical when the economic and social costs of using them are transparently recognized and are fully borne by those who incur them rather than other people or future generations. So I think that's very important. There are other states in the country who have carbon offsets. I'm sorry, carbon, just a minute. They are California, Washington State, and then there's a group along the East Coast. Canada has a carbon price of about $40 a ton, and there's also European Union and some provinces of China. A carbon tax usually has a border adjustment. The border adjustment means that if we're producing products here in Michigan and want to export them to China, to Canada, there would be a tax applied there, which would put us at a disadvantage. So that's the problem. So that's what I'm saying. The other part was land. I don't think it was mentioned, but our agricultural system is carbon plus, carbon dioxide plus, and if we reconstructed the
That's 3 minutes,
soil with the soil, then we can have a carbon sequestration, and that would be huge for reducing our carbon print. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk again.
All right, thank you for your comment tonight, John. All right, so with that, that wraps up our commenters tonight. I'm gonna turn it over to James and the panelists. So James, you want to make some comments, wrapping it up?
Yeah, just really quickly wanted to kind of thank everyone for calling in tonight, sharing your thoughts. Again, remind you, you have until March 14th to submit written comments. And I believe Regina, I think, would like to speak now.
I just wanted to follow up and thank everyone for participating, for providing their comments, for prioritizing equity in the plan, encouraging you to submit written comments. James just said the deadline is March 14th. So look forward to seeing and hearing from more of you.
All right, thank you all. So just to remind you, up on the screen is the email address where you can send written comments if you'd like to. It's eagle-climatesolutions@michigan.gov. And if you go to the climate website, which is michigan.gov/climate, you can find additional information as well. With that, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight and for contributing your thoughtful comments. We did record this listening session just like we recorded the first two, and it will be put up on the michigan.gov/climate website probably tomorrow if we can get up there. So you'll see it tomorrow, and it'll also be up in the YouTube channel. Thank you all for being with us tonight, and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.